The second video for this week should be pretty short. It only includes 6 questions. It's on solving equations with square roots and cube roots. We actually already solved some equations with square roots when we did the Pythagorean theorem, although there is something that's slightly different here, given that we have two possible solutions instead of just one. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then the equations that involve cube roots, those might be a little bit different for us, but again, they're going to be relatively simple, just kind of working with square roots, cube roots, squaring numbers, cubing numbers, things that we have already talked about. So I have 5 examples to start, and then we'll do 6 together. So example 1, it says x squared equals 121. So if I want to solve this equation, to undo squaring a number, I take the square root of the number. When I take the square root of x squared, I end up getting x. When I take the square root of 121, I get 11. Now you're going to notice something that's new here. I'll highlight this. This is our plus or minus symbol that we saw, in our last lesson, or, very recently. But we've got plus or minus 11. That means that both positive 11 and negative 11 are solutions to this equation. Because if I do 11 squared, I get 121. But also, if I do negative 11 squared, negative 11 times negative 11 also gets me positive 121. So they're both solutions. Now you might be thinking, well, when we did Pythagorean theorem, why didn't we list both possible solutions? Why didn't we do this? Well, in Pythagorean theorem, we were talking about side lengths of triangles, and it's not possible for the side length of a triangle to be negative. So that's why we didn't do it then. Example 2 makes things a little bit more complicated because we have a number in front of our squared term. So we have 4b squared equals 144. The only difference here is you're going to divide both sides by 4 first, and then take the square root of both sides. The square root of 36 is 6. Excuse me. So my solution is going to be plus or minus 6, positive 6, or negative 6. So if we have an equation that we're not trying to find a side length of a triangle or something that can't be negative, and it involves an x squared, b squared, a squared, we're going to have two possible solutions, the positive value and the negative value. So we'll put the plus or minus symbol in front of that answer. Now for examples 3, 4, and 5, those do involve cubes. So in example 3, it says c to the third power equals 8. So instead of taking the square root of both sides, to undo cubing a number, we're going to do the cube root of both sides. So we take the cube root of c cubed and the cube root of 8. The cube root of c cubed, they undo each other and leaves me with c. And the cube root of 8, there's only one possible solution there. It's 2. And you can even check this back in the equation. If I take 2 to the third power, that equals 8. But negative 2 doesn't work. If I do negative 2 to the third power, it gets me negative 8. So that's why with this, there's only one possible solution. Example 4, divide both sides by 5 first, and then take the cube root of both sides. So we're going to take the cube root of u cubed and the cube root of 27 to get 3. Again, only one solution here. Example 5, I threw in a negative value for this. If I have e cubed equals negative 64, I'm going to take the cube root of both sides, and the cube root of negative 64 is going to get us negative 4. Remember, it's okay to take the cube root of a negative number, just not the square root of a negative number. So let's take a look at our examples. And I realized as I started this video that I didn't cover up my solutions for these. So kind of try to ignore the solutions as we walk through this. Normally I like to cover it up and kind of go through it step by step. Yeah. Hi, Ollie. So for these, it says solve each of the following equations. Feel free to try these on your own as well. But number 1, we have a to the second power equals 25. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Square root of a squared is a. Square root of 25 is 5. Again, notice how I put the plus or minus symbol in front of it because there's two solutions to this equation, 5 and negative 5. 5 to the second power gets us 25. So does negative 5 to the second power. Be careful, Ollie. Number 2, we have 2x squared equals 162. First thing you want to do is divide both sides by 2. So we're going to get x squared equals 81. Take the square root of both sides. The square root of 81 is 9. Again, we've got that plus or minus symbol in front because we're talking about an x squared type of equation. Number 3, we've got 3w cubed equals 24. Divide both sides by 3 to start to get w to the third power equals 8. Take the cube root of both sides, and the cube root of 8 is 2. Again, it's not a bad idea to double check to make sure your solution works. Do 3 times 2 to the third power. 2 to the third power is going to get us 8. 8 times 3 is 24. And again, for the cube root types of problems, there's only one possible solution. I should mention that, I do expect you to be able to do these problems without a calculator. I'm not giving you any crazy numbers to work with here. You can see that I'm not taking time to mention plugging something into a calculator because your calculations are simple. Number 4, we have 5v squared equals 45. Divide both sides by 5 first to get v squared equals 9. Take the square root of both sides to get v equals plus or minus 3. Again, don't forget that plus or minus symbol if we're taking the square root of both sides, especially when we have like square root of v squared equals 9. Like v, again, could be a positive value or a negative value because when you square it, you get the same solution. Number 5, t cubed equals negative 27. So for this one, I'm going to take the cube root of both sides. The cube root of negative 27 is going to get us negative 3. Again, just be careful here. It's not 2 solutions, only 1, and that solution happens to be negative. You have to ignore my son. He's coming in and out of the room where I'm recording this, so you might be able to hear him in the background. Last one, number 6, and then assignment 1 is going to be based on the first video and then this video. Again, I'm trying to keep these problems as easy as possible. I know that this is a different kind of situation, not being in a regular classroom, but I always try to make them, as easy as possible. And if not, again, I do have office hours on Thursday where you can come and ask some questions. So number 6, it says 2p squared equals 128. Divide both sides by 2 first to get p squared equals 64. Take the square root of p squared and the square root of 64 to get 8. Again, don't forget that plus or minus symbol. I'm highlighting that plus or minus symbol because honestly, the biggest mistake students make is they just forget to put that. It's a common mistake. It's easy to forget, especially, first time seeing this. But, even high school students, I think, can sometimes forget that there's more than one solution to equations that involve like x squared, p squared, c squared, y squared, whatever it may be. At this point, if you want to do assignment 1, I will tell you that the second assignment is going to be shifting gears completely to something different. So you may want to just do assignment 1, get it out of the way, and then move on to the second half of the lessons for this week. Thanks for listening.